it's time to hear from the Occupy side. Again, you can have one spokesman, or each of the three of you can speak a little bit.
Well, I think it's really important to remember that we have a government and we have power structures, and those two are not necessarily always the same thing and identical. But it's not that there isn't power invested in the government in this country. There is, but we have to face the fact that the people who work in that government are not their own bosses, nor do they work for us. Their paychecks are provided by the top 1%, the top 0.1% of the economic spectrum in this country. The highest end of the economic spectrum has not only more influence than they should have, but the top 25% of the money that's been spent so far in the Republican campaign so far has been by the top 5 donors. 5 individuals have spent 25% of the money on this election. If that is democracy, then I mean it's time to check out if that's democracy. That's not democracy.
About 30 seconds left.
I would just say, you know, I think the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, has said it probably the best. I mean, America has become a banana republic, an oligarchy. So the claims that we're a republic or a democracy, they're both wrong. We're controlled by a handful of elite interests with a lot of money. And so it takes democratic action to reverse that. And that's where we all come in.
Okay, we actually have about a minute and a half extra left over here, so I'll jump in and ask, what do you want, a direct democracy as opposed to representative democracy, which is what we have?
Absolutely. I think
direct democracy?
Direct referendums on issues.
On everything?
On most everything.
Certainly more than we have.
Yes.
Whatever the majority of the country wants on every issue.
It definitely needs to shift more to
Whatever
individual.
50.1% wants is what, that's how we should decide every issue. Is that feasible?
We will find that what most Americans want is exactly what we have, a constitutional limited government, which is a republic. This is the greatest country on the face of the earth. People are coming from all around the world to America because they have seen through history. History has proven what kind of country America is and what America is all about. There's a dream here. People want to achieve that dream. You don't achieve that in a dictatorship. You don't achieve that in mob rule. But you can achieve that here in America. America has produced more millionaires than any country on the face of the earth.
And that's the value of a country's worth, Emery. How many millionaires they have?
And on that,
and how many
we
do they
will
have to
wrap up. We will have to wrap up. Thank you all for being with us. We appreciate it. Don't forget the discussion continues in just a moment. We'll stop down for a second, and then this discussion will continue on Wayne.com, and continue to follow us on social media as well. For now, for those of you joining us in television, I'm Mark Mellinger. Thank you for being with us, and enjoy the rest of your evening. For those of you who have hung with us online, thank you for doing so. We sure were getting into some good back and forth before we were so rudely interrupted by the constraints of the medium. I'm wondering if you guys would like to continue this debate about what democracy in America means. I think it's a pretty good and pretty fundamental debate.
Right.
Yes.
And you know, I think America is great, but I would just say it's because of Americans, not
Yes.
because
Right, we're the greatest resource.
The wealth. It's of money. It's through the wealth of values that we share, and the commitment to community. We want to see each other succeed, and I think we should hold on to those values. So
Yes.
for me, it's less about, you know, as some would say, a redistribution of wealth. It's more of a realignment of our values.
Well, I think the thing that's really important too, Bob, is that you're right that it is American people. American people are wonderful, but so are people in other countries too.
Absolutely.
The reason that, and I know you're not saying otherwise, but the reason that Americans have been so fortunate and so prosperous in both monetary means and in freedom. We're the freest country in the world. That's the most important thing. And it's because of the structure of our republic that allowed for Americans to be free to do what they want to do. If it's to become a millionaire, then to become a millionaire. If it's to become a person who gives all their money away, then to do that as well.
I want to pick up, by the way, you can answer that, but I want to pick up on what you meant by a realignment of values. That's a little bit provocative. What do you mean by that?
Well, I feel we've valued, and it's been kind of drilled into us from the time, at least when I was young, watching Saturday morning cartoons, and you get advertised to every 5 minutes on something that you don't need, but that people feel should be advertised that you do need. So I think over time we've become...
We've overconsumed?
We've overconsumed, but we've been kind of lied to about consumption, that consumption creates happiness. And I just think that that's not true. I think our families, our communities, the relationships that we have create value in this life.
I don't think anybody on this panel is going to disagree. Does anybody disagree with that?
No, but it's not the role of other people to put values on to others. I mean, maybe we can all agree. I think we can all agree, and we can come together and decide what we think we ought to support. But the principle in this country, the most important, in my opinion at least, is that we have freedom. So if your value is different than mine, I might not agree, and I may, tell you what mine is, but I don't have the right to make you follow my values.
Outside the realm of legislation and actually forcing people to have your values, ultimately, I think that's the only thing that's really going to provide any kind of a real solution for the
To
problems.
force people to have your values?
No,
Is that what you
no.
said? Oh.
Outside of that, I think changing our values is the only thing that's going to have any real impact on the problems that this country has.
And would you agree with Bob that the value that needs to be changed is this mistaken notion that consumption and having stuff is what will,
among others,
what will make us happy?
Ultimately, I think it's even bigger than that. I really think it's mostly centered in the urge to participate and be approved of and be a part of the group. And there's a lot of football team mentality that goes on in the politics that we have today. And honestly, I think that's because the genuine attitude that a lot of people have about it isn't much different from the attitude that they have about sports. They have a team, they want them to win. They know they want their team to win. They know how their team wins, but they don't really think too much about, concretely in the real world what it actually means when they cast their vote in a certain way. And I think people need to value their votes more.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you speak of virtue is what made America great. To repeat a president, Ronald Reagan, he said America's great because America's good.
Yes.
And that's the truth. And America was a country that was born on strong beliefs in God, religious freedom, and so forth. We passed down our Judeo-Christian ethics, through the years. People, you don't have...
Why only our
in America,
Judeo-Christian ethics? I'm just curious.
because
What's
that's
that,
what
Max?
America was based upon.
I don't think everybody got that. What
I'm
you
sorry,
said.
just, why does it specifically have to be Judeo-Christian ethics?
Because
and not
that's what
just
America
good
was based
ethics?
upon at the time. That's what brought America into being.
But that's
so
a
that was
relevant
it.
part of the story, that they're Judeo-Christian ethics and not
wait a
just
minute,
good
wait a
ethics.
minute, over time, other religions have moved to America. You still have freedom under the Constitution to practice your religion. Nobody has said they can throw anything out, and we can see
But the
that
way you
more
said
and
it makes
more
it sound
now
like those
that
people who
more
are
and more
not
religions
Jews or
are
Christians
here,
are always
and
gonna be outsiders in
they
this
are
country
practicing
because
their
it was found to be a
religion, and
Jewish
nobody's
Christian.
killing people for practicing their religion.
It's an unassailable fact that at the time of the signing of the Constitution, around 99% of the population was Christian.
Right.
And
It's also an unassailable
even-
fact that
even-
wasn't written into our Constitution.
No, it's...
That's another one of those unverified assertions, by the way, for those of you scoring at home.
But if we look even 100 years ago, if we were to look at the country, overwhelmingly Christian. So to say that, no, the history of this country is not an
And-
overwhelmingly Christian
Excuse me.
population, just simply
Excuse me,
isn't
I'm
accurate.
sorry. I mean, our founding fathers were from the elite colonialists that came to this country. What about the Native Americans that were here way before? What religion were they?
Well,
This
again,
country was
by the
there.
signing of the Constitution, most of those who are on the eastern side, have become Christian. As far as those with indigenous beliefs, there's a whole
So
variety of
through
different
really
religious beliefs.
persuasive
Those who had not become dead.
actions, yeah.
They became
Now, Bob,
corpses.
are you saying you want to turn the country back over? get Caucasian people out of here and give it all back to Native
No,
Americans?
we should acknowledge some heritage that isn't Caucasian.
What's that?
We should acknowledge some heritage that isn't Caucasian,
Okay.
especially when they were here
If
first.
you want to talk about the values and influences of our founding fathers, I think it's a mistake to talk about them in terms of everything that happened, after the Constitution was signed and all the Indians were dead. The values that founded this country are the same, we like to think of religious freedom and everything like that. The founding fathers didn't believe in all those rights for everyone. They didn't believe in them for minorities, for women.
Yes, they did.
It was written by a bunch of rich white property owners,
No,
and
that's not true at all.
It's an opinion. It's a statement of
It
opinion.
is
I
an
think
opinion.
everybody would acknowledge that. Let me ask you this. Is there an American creed, a basic American creed, that people of all stripes can sign on to? That we believe in the dignity of individual people. We believe in basic rights for everybody. We believe in basic political rights and freedom of expression, right to live your life within bounds. I mean, is there... Would you all say that's an American creed that we can all sign on to?
I think you
I'd like
have
to
to.
think so, but
I think you have to ask whether
No.
or not people believe that that's what America should be, or whether or not that's what they're experiencing in America. Because if you talk to different minority groups and in disenfranchised groups, then no, this isn't a place where we have equal opportunity, equal freedom.
there are a lot of very angry Afghans right now who would not agree that we believe in basic human decency for all people because...
And that's available here in
Yeah,
America.
but I think everybody agrees, and again, let me know if I'm putting words in your mouth. I think everybody here agrees that's what we want to strive for, right?
Yes.
Yes? Yes, that's what we want to strive for. Okay, so can these two mostly disparate sides, but you do have some similarities. Somebody asked Sarah, our multimedia reporter over there, can anything come out of tonight that even looks like a solution to solving some of the country's problems? What do you two think? Can we just begin to reach some common ground?
I think we can, and I think we already have. I think our mutual, thank you, our mutual interests are definitely there, and I think we can both agree that an intrusive state into our lives is bad, but also an intrusive government controlled by, elite interests, by big money financed interests. And when you have...
Does the Tea Party sign on to that?
I absolutely, if you look at the influence, again, of that cartel of major banks, their power is terrifying. And if you look at the Federal Reserve, QE1, that was the process wherein they bought up $1.25 trillion.
Quantitative easing, right.
Quantitative easing, the first quantitative easing, they bought up all of these securitized mortgages. They paid $1.25 trillion, they're probably worth $300 or $400 billion, so they pocket hundreds of billions of dollars. Then they have QE2, where they purchase up about $600 billion in treasuries that were worth maybe $400 billion. Stick a couple $100 billion more in there. Any person, unless you're working with Goldman Sachs, who has a moral conscience, and that would be contradictory working at Goldman Sachs, but any person who has a moral conscience is going to say, that's monstrous. Why are we not in the streets with pitchforks and torches? I mean, my goodness, we've got to do something about this Federal Reserve. So I think that's one area that we can have commonality. I think if people knew exactly what the Federal Reserve did, how it's debased our currency, it would be virtually everyone except Goldman Sachs.
Okay, we're